Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I want to start off by thanking all of you who tuned in last week for the dedicated men's health episode. Not only did you tune in, which I kind of wasn't expecting, I thought this was going to be a subject that might turn some people off. Your comments were super wonderful, very supportive, very interesting, and at least as of today, there were zero dislikes on that video. Now probably somebody will go back and put a dislike on it. As I was editing that video, I looked at my notes and I realized there was one topic I didn't cover, and then there was another one that popped into my brain. So I'm going to cover those both right now, sort of as a little mini addendum to last week's topic before we move on. The first is stoicism. And I've talked about, I like to study the philosophy of stoicism. And one of the things, I think it was Epictetus that said, when you worry about something, you suffer twice. So you worry about the future, and maybe that future thing happens, maybe it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, you inflicted worry and pain on yourself unnecessarily. If it does happen, well, you inflicted worry or pain on yourself twice, first worrying about it and then when it actually occurred. And I wanted to bring this up in the context of some of the things, some of the procedures that men undergo for men's health, whether that's a DRE, whether that's a cystoscopy, whether that's a prostate biopsy. I wanted to balance the information that I gave and shared about the procedures last week without giving so much that it might make people worry or might make them not want to have this procedure. So what I would say is just accept the fact that maybe it's going to be pleasant. Well, probably won't. It's probably going to be unpleasant. But getting yourself all worked up about it prior to any sort of a procedure, it doesn't do anybody any good. And generally, I say generally, the actual process winds up not being nearly as bad as what we psyched ourselves up for. So that was the first thing I didn't cover. The other one is another aspect of men's health, which is mental health. I looked it up, and this is pretty fascinating. The suicide rate for men is 3.8 times greater than it is for women. And I think a big reason for that, this is purely my opinion, is we tend to keep our feelings bottled up, especially if it's something that is going to make us seem weak or vulnerable. And I'm not speaking for all men, and I'm not speaking for all generations, but I recall seeing a podcast. It might have been by Adam Carolla. I'm not sure. I don't watch a lot of other podcasts, but he talked about how what screwed us all up as men was the world wars, especially World War II. So you had the greatest generation go off to Europe or the Pacific Theater and saw and maybe even had to do some pretty horrific things. And then they came home and they just shut that part of their memory off. They tended to become fairly cold emotionally. And I recall when the movie Saving Private Ryan came out, they showed the Normandy invasion, that just a lot of these World War II vets suddenly, it was just like a rush coming back to them. This was part of themselves that they had really kind of blocked off even from themselves. And as a result, what you had was a generation, the baby boomers raised by these veterans, and then Gen X raised by the baby boomers, that kind of had this macho mentality about guys. We don't talk about our problems. Rub a little dirt on it, get back out there. So I think about one time when I was in high school, it was in wrestling, and I was wrestling this kid who was just an absolute spaz. This guy, I hated wrestling him because he was just crazy. And he went to put a cross-face cradle on me. So he's on top, we're on the mounted, or he's up behind me, I'm more or less on my hands and knees, and he comes across like an uppercut. And my incisor here, I shouldn't be poking at my mouth while I'm trying to talk, one of my front teeth went through my lip badly. And the assistant coach came over, he looked at it, and he's like, oh, you're going to probably need to go have some stitches. Then the head coach came over and peeled it back and said, I've been cut way worse than that and never needed a stitch in my life. Get a little direct pressure on that, and then I want you back out on the mat. So I did. I held it until it quit bleeding, and then I got out there, and of course I'm fighting this guy again, or wrestling against this guy again, and started bleeding, and he said, hey, if all you're going to do is bleed on my mat, get out of here. And when you've grown up in an environment like that, it gets hard to show weakness. And I think the point that I'm trying to make is for both men and women, but as we're talking about men's health, men, we need to be more comfortable sharing. We need to be more comfortable talking about our feelings, sharing what bothers us, sharing what causes our anxiety or depression. And women, you can absolutely help us out on this too. I mentioned before in the previous podcast how it's my belief that women are they're better sharing their feelings, they're better listeners as well. And I think a lot of what we need is just to be listened to from time to time. When we're sharing our feelings, you provide a tremendous amount of support for us. So thank you for what you do, and thank you in advance. And guys, just remember, it's not weakness. It's not weakness to share your feelings. So let's stay healthy physically and mentally. But I think that allows me to put a bow on the men's health topic. The second half of this podcast is kind of going to be fairly quick topics, the first of which is Facebook. I have started posting more recipes out on Facebook, usually from the past, sort of like the flashback sort of videos, the same sort of things that I include typically in the weekly newsletter that I send out. If you haven't subscribed, the link is down in the description below. But when I go into Facebook, every time I go in, I see some sort of horrible, obviously not a keto picture, and a keto recipe that doesn't align at all with the picture. I don't know if the picture's AI generated. I think in many instances it is. Sometimes it's just a stock photo. But I saw one for keto macaroni and cheese. And the picture was obviously elbow macaroni. There is not elbow macaroni anywhere in the recipe. It says use cauliflower florets, which to me is not macaroni and cheese. That's cheese and cauliflower. So one of the things I'm trying to do whenever these show up, I think I know in the Google newsfeed, there's an option, there's like 3 little dots, and you can say, not applicable to me, or I don't like this video, or don't show content from this person or on this subject. I think if more people do that, whether it's on Facebook or Instagram or their Google newsfeed, if it's showing up in your feed and it's not something you like because it's AI or because it's fake, it's not real keto, your feedback can help control that. So I try and do that. I would encourage you all to do the same. It would be great if we could sort of get some of this stuff cleaned up so that we know if we get out onto one of these sources and we see a recipe that advertises itself as keto or low carb or carnivore or ketovore, that it actually is. Because I really don't think most of us have the time or the money to try making these fake recipes that aren't going to turn out. Now recently I got an email from Google or Google AdSense regarding the ads on my page. Actually I got 2. First I got one that told me my revenue was down 70% since I turned off all of these pop-up ads. But it's worth it to me because I want my website to be the sort of website I would go to. I don't want to see a bunch of pop-up ads that, especially the ones that look like, oh, you need to download this software in order to print out this recipe. I find them very frustrating, and I didn't want to be any part of that, so those are gone. But then I got another email from Google. They're coming out with a new product. It's called OfferWall. So OFFER wall. And this is another one. You might start seeing this on some websites. So what it does is it monitors how much content you are getting from a website. Like, how many times have you been out here? Have you printed out 3 recipes or whatever? It keeps track of you, probably via a cookie. And what you can do as a content creator is you can set a threshold. So once a person has looked at a certain number of pages or a certain number of recipes or spent a certain amount of time on your website, they are forced to watch an ad that they can't get out of. So this is something, it's a new product. You might start seeing it on some websites. You won't be seeing it on mine though. And while we're on the topic of ads, I did a little experiment with last week's podcast. So when you record a podcast, you upload it to YouTube, you have the option to monetize it, which I do, and that automatically puts an ad at the beginning of the video. You then have the option to insert mid-rolls, and generally I will do 1 mid-roll on a longer podcast or video. The threshold that YouTube has for mid-rolls is 8 minutes. So once you have an 8-minute long video, you can insert multiple mid-roll ads. My threshold for when I insert a mid-roll ad is generally if the video is more than 12 minutes long. I'll put that little break in there. But YouTube also has an option to auto-insert breaks where it feels like this would be a good place for a break. So last week's video where I inserted 1 ad, if I would have let YouTube do it, 6 ads, 6 mid-roll ads, 7 if you count the one before the video. Now, I didn't bring up any of this to make it look like I'm some sort of a content creator saint. Oh, look at me, I don't have ads. But I do bring it up because if you want to support the channel, I would rather you do it on your terms rather than mine. Whether that's becoming a paid channel member, whether that's making a donation through the Serious Keto website, there's a little PayPal like support Serious Keto button, or whether it's just by watching videos, going out binge watching, hitting like, leaving comments, using my my Amazon links down in videos, things like that. There's so many ways that you can help out me or any other content creator. But like I said, I would rather you do it on your terms rather than me forcing a bunch of ads on you. So anyhow, like I said, not trying to make myself look like some sort of YouTube content creator saint or something like that, but I just wanted to share that with you. So when you see some of these things on other channels, understand that it could be YouTube or Google doing it or kind of pushing that on the content creators. And I know a number of you don't care about the business aspects of being a content creator, but the reason I share this is because very often you will see this and maybe wonder, wow, why am I seeing all these ads all of a sudden? And that's the reason. The final thing I want to let everybody know about the channel, the next couple of weeks, video schedules can be a little bit different. We've got the Black Friday sales. So I need to give a little love to those companies that are affiliate marketing partners with me. So you probably aren't going to see a cooking video over the course of the next 2 weeks. Probably won't be a podcast next week either. I think all the video content between now and Cyber Monday is probably going to be related to Black Friday sales. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, I appreciate this time we spend together. I appreciate you. I appreciate your comments. I appreciate your support of this channel. So thank you so much. And thanks for watching.